time. I served as executive director of 3 nonprofit organizations, the last one being Shoes and Clothes for Kids. And then 18 years ago, I started my own consulting firm. I had been doing a lot of projects on the side. I didn't realize I was consulting on the side. I've been doing a lot of side projects that different funders asked me to do with other organizations that weren't a conflict of interest with the organization that I was leading. And after 9/11, there were so many changes in how nonprofits were raising money, how they were structuring themselves, the focus of their work. It was soon after that that I started my business full time. I consult with small organizations and big ones and everything in between. I do a lot of strategic planning and startup planning and change management planning. I also do a lot of capacity building trainings. I run for the Cleveland Foundation, for example, something called the Greater Cleveland Interfaith Alliance, which is a program that builds the nonprofit understanding and nonprofit best practices for churches and mosques and synagogues. I facilitate something called the Refugee Services Collaborative of Greater Cleveland to work with those 14 organizations in building capacity. I work with many, many organizations on board development, and I actually now teach governance at the Mandel Center at Case. And I very much believe that all kinds of people, all backgrounds, all ages, all everything can make excellent board members, and that most nonprofits are not doing a good enough job yet in truly reaching out into the community. So when Ashley asked me to talk about young professionals as board members, I was very excited to do that. So that is who I am. I'm going to ask you to answer a few questions for me. I'm going to make everybody talk. So if you thought you were coming to a presentation, you're actually coming to a discussion. And I am going to, I have a PowerPoint, but I'm not going to share. Ashley, am I set to be able to share my screen?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I'll share for 1 second. I'll share in a second, but be prepared. I'm going to start calling on you with some questions here. And 1 more second. Okay. I'm bringing this PowerPoint up. I'm going to open it, then click through it, and then take it away for a minute. Wait a minute. So I can see you all. All right, am I sharing? Am I good? Am I sharing? Yes?
Yes, looks good.
Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about. So what does it really mean to be on a board? What do young professionals bring to a board? How can you make sure that you and any given board are a good fit and what to watch out for? And once you're on the board, how do you truly become engaged? But I want to hear from each of you about these questions. And if you want to memorize these or take a picture of these or whatever you want to do, because I'm going to take this down so I can see you all as we do this. So I want to ask you, so do you currently work in a nonprofit? And if so, which one and what do you do? And if not, are you hoping to? And do you serve on a board? If so, which one? If not, have you ever? And are you looking to serve on a nonprofit board in the near future or the longer term future? And if so, what type of organization and what are you looking for through board service? So you got those questions? Who wants to be first, or should I just start calling on people?
I'll jump in so I can make sure that I get in before
Oh, because you have to leave it in
before
45
class.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes,
why don't I
yes.
jump in?
Perfect, James. Thank you.
So hello, I am James Kosmatka, he, him, his pronouns. I work for the American Civil Liberties Union of Ohio as the operations manager. So I help run facilities, finance, HR, equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, and I help out with IT as well. And so all the stuff that is the stuff that isn't fundraising or program. And I do a limited amount of interaction with our board. Sometimes I help take minutes at board meetings, work with the director or with the equity chair, and sometimes help passing on potential board members to our deputy director. I'm also on the board of directors of YNPN Cleveland, like Janus and I were talking about at the beginning. And I function as treasurer right now, and then we have kind of a shared leadership arrangement at the moment, given our recent losses on the board over the past year. And then lastly, I actually recently got an invite to consider joining a board of a small nonprofit arts organization. Not being on it yet, I don't want to get too much into details, but one of the things I'm hoping is that they had a significant amount of trouble over the past 2 years. And it is an organization where I am familiar with a lot of the people involved. I was involved with the organization when it was first formed, but did not end up joining the board when I took another job. And so I'm hoping to be able to help provide a steadying hand as they pull themselves out of some muck.
Okay. And so, okay. And what do you hope to get out of board service?
Oh, for me personally, particularly right now, my background is in theater. And so I spent 5 years at Cleveland Public Theater on the staff there. And so having moved into nonprofit social justice, it is a very different environment. And so being involved back in the art scene means a lot to me. Being able to provide a mature HR and financial management perspective for an organization, for a young organization that may not have that as much, means a lot to me. And thinking about board membership from a angle of someone who has dealt with boards frequently in the past 10 years means a lot to me too. So someone who can think about who thinks a lot about what managing boards and boards managing organizations means.
Okay, and you said you're working on getting an MBA now.
Yes, I'm getting my MBA at Case Weatherhead.
What's your undergrad degree? Theater?
I started in theater, then I shifted over to business management.
Okay, great. So you don't need me to be thinking about potential boards for you because we think you have one.
Right.
Right? Okay. So James,
you can concentrate on everyone else.
Okay, thank you. So James did a great job.
Thank you so much.
Who wants to go next? Or I'll call on people. No one wants to go next?
I can share.
Good, Shelby.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shelby Mcgee. This is only my second YNPN Cleveland event because I just moved to Cleveland in July from Austin, Texas. I currently serve as the Associate Director of Health Initiatives for United Way of Greater Cleveland. I've been there just over 2 months. It's been a great opportunity so far. And I do currently serve on the YNPN Austin chapter board. We're a much larger chapter, but experiencing a lot of the same woes that YNPN Cleveland is with board turnover and attendance difficulties in this, second year of COVID. People are really getting burned out. So those all really relate to me as well. So
Mhm.
as of right now, I'm a member of YNPN Cleveland, not a board member. And so, yes, I'm currently serving on the board in Austin, but I'll be rolling off at the end of December. So I would think board service is in my future, I hope, as a way to get more involved in the Cleveland community. Although technically I live in Summit County near like Macedonia, Northfield, so I would also be open to experiencing board service in those areas too.
So
Um,
you're in Summit County, but you're working for Cuyahoga
That's
County,
correct. I
right?
work in downtown Cleveland for United Way of Greater Cleveland. So my priority right now is getting to know Cleveland because my job will be so much about
Right.
understanding how Cleveland sectors, especially health sectors, work and work together. But I also really like being engaged in my community. So if there were a small board that was looking for someone who has some board experience, maybe interest in like a health and all policies approach to housing or civic engagement or education. I think there's a health lens for everything, and my background is public health, so I could bring that. I'm also just a good strategic planner, a good organizer, and could bring those kinds of things to a board. So yeah, I'm interested in getting involved probably in the beginning of 2022 at the earliest, as I'm still settling in.
And you
Um,
moved here, the reason you moved here was for your job?
I moved here because my partner started a PhD program. So we
Okay,
came for his school.
and then got a good job.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
It was great luck for me.
yes, yes. Okay. So what school is he at?
He's at Kent State.
So that's why you're living where you are between everything.
That's right. Yes. So
Okay.
that we could kind of be in the middle. So it does make
Mhm.
me feel a little detached from the city itself. We try to go in on the weekends and see the sights, but we don't really live in the metro area. So I would love for board service to be a way for me to facilitate growing a community within Cleveland and professional network. And again, getting another view on potentially sectors that intersect with health, but aren't necessarily health,
Mhm.
or health from a different angle. So my focus in health right now is very much in how health insurance and healthcare providers can support the social safety net, but I'm also really interested in relationship and sexual violence prevention, really interested in adults with disabilities, and really, like I said, I think health belongs in all policies. So any sort of social service, I think could take a health lens.
Okay, and at United Way, are you allowed to serve on boards if there are organizations that United Way doesn't fund, or are there any restrictions there?
I do believe there are a few restrictions
Mhm.
because of the way that we fund, but we've also changed the funding structure pretty dramatically, so that there are fewer organizations being funded, and there's not as many like open calls for proposals.
Right.
So I would need to understand a little more about those restrictions, but my boss has absolutely encouraged me to get involved in board service if that's
Excellent.
something that I'm interested in.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Shelby. So who's next? Okay, I'm going to start calling on people. I'm calling on Ashley.
Hello, I'm Ashley Zacharias, and I just started recently a new job at the Greater Cleveland Food Bank. So I've been there for almost 2 months now, and I am the corporate relations coordinator. I came most recently from Case Western. I was working at the law school in alumni relations and development, so I have a little bit of the development background to go with that. I'm not currently on any boards. I am a member of the young professionals group at the zoo, which is called The Herd. So I am doing that. And I know that in my role at the food bank, I'm going to be in charge of our young professionals group there. So I haven't had any interaction with them yet, but that will be coming up. And in terms of board opportunities, my passion, one of my main ones would really be anything animal related. Like I said, I work with the zoo right now, so I would love like anything to do with like animal shelters, SPCA, that kind of thing. What I'm hoping to get out of board service is just, I think, just getting a greater connection to the community and being able to like give back, and also kind of like the networking and professional development opportunities that will kind of help further my career and decide where I want to go if I decide to leave the food bank at some point.
You'll love the food bank though.
Yeah, I've heard great things about it. It's been really good so far.
I did your most recent strategic plan, and I worked closely with lots of people there, and I was with Tiffany Scruggs earlier today on Zoom. And Akila, do you know Akila Ashraf?
Yes.
Akila got her on a board that I do some work with. So yes, so you're at a good place. Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
How about, thank you, Ashley. Who's next, or am I continuing to call on people?
I can go next.
Kelly, go ahead. Good.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Donnelly. Today is actually my first YNPN event, so I'm excited to meet everyone and very excited to have Janus's expertise on here. I've been meaning to come to YNPN events for a couple of years, and just my schedule never behaves to allow that to happen. As far as the questions, the first one, do I work for a nonprofit? Yes and no. I own my own consulting firm, kind of like Janus, how you mentioned, like started doing projects on the side 7 years ago when I was in public accounting. And then during the pandemic, I decided to go full-time with my firm. Before that, I was a controller for both for-profit and nonprofit organizations. I specialize in small business, tax, and nonprofit. So the majority of my client base is actually nonprofit for my consulting. I think it shows up on my name, but I'm an accountant, so I'm a CPA, so that's what I do.
Yes, yes.
That's the value I bring, along with some,
Great.
passion for helping people out, of course. As far as board, and then I also teach at Tri-C. I teach accounting there, so we're a nonprofit as well. I teach over here in the Parma campus. Great place.
Yes.
I can't say enough good things. As far as boards I serve on, I do serve on a couple. I'm the co-chair of the Junior Achievement Young Professionals Board. Now we're called the Junior Board. We've renamed ourselves just to get away from the terminology of young professionals. Just something, they wanted to get away from that. So one of the reasons why I was excited to come here today was to hear what kind of conversations people are having around joining boards, because we have a great team that we're building back up. But I wanted to find out about reaching out to more people and what kind of questions the folks who are in our group might have or want to know about becoming leadership roles as we're rebuilding everything. And then I serve on the board of the Hispanic UMADOP, which is a wonderful drug prevention and treatment center, if anyone knows it, that does services in both English and fully in Spanish, so that people can get services in their native language, which is a huge determinant of if treatment is successful. And then I'm just rolling off the board at my church, actually, our finance council, as well as I'm on the CSU Accounting Advisory Junior Board, but we haven't been very active the last few years.
You're on lots of boards.
Yes, so I'm in a few things. One of the reasons I think you asked about like what we're looking to get or what we're looking to give.
Yes.
Consulting has taught me one thing: you never know everything that's out there, right? You never know what opportunity is about to show up around the corner. So of course, always interested in like other ways I could help or things I might have, like are people interested in junior achievement, things like that. And then also, as far as boards go, obviously, like it's really hard to find finance people, I feel like, in nonprofit boards in my experience.
It is.
So I bring that. But then also I grew up in a tougher situation. So I was one of the individuals who probably should have been a recipient of a lot of the boards I serve on. So it's really important for me to like give back and be that person that like maybe can reach out and make a difference for a kid that was like I was.
And so you're not looking for more boards now? Or are you open? You do a lot.
I'm open, yeah.
Okay, will you also reach out to me about the services that your firm offers, since groups are always asking me about good accounting services?
Yes, absolutely.
Nonprofit?
Yeah, I'll reach
Okay,
out, send our website, and then I'm sure we have lots to chat about. I read about your firm, so
Okay,
I'm sure we have a
so
lot.
that would be great, Kelly.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, how about Ashley?
Hello.
Oh, we have two Ashleys. We have
Yes.
two Ashleys today, and we heard from one Ashley. How about our other Ashley?
All right. Well, my name is Ashley Hendricks. I work with the Alzheimer's Association for Lake Geauga and Ashtabula counties as their development manager. I just started a couple weeks ago, so this is all very new. I am also currently on the YNPN board, the Young Nonprofits Professionals Network board, as their programming chair. I am also, my passion is focused on social services and mainly focusing on education as well as children in need. So one of the things I'm actually working towards is talking to the organization that I used to work with to see if I could actually be a part of their board team and contribute my time there with them, rather than being just kind of giving my little hands-on experience still with them.
And where did you work? What organization was that?
Oh, it was the Mary Lee Tucker Clothe a Child program, and they support kids in need of clothes in Lorain, Erie, Huron, Lake, and Geauga counties.
Okay. So you are not looking for other board opportunities?
Currently, no, but I'm always interested to hear what else is out there. And like I said, I love learning and I love educating people. So if there's any way of directing them, and also learning, very similar to what Kelly was talking about, learning how to bring people in for different boards. Like I said, one of the things that we're looking for in YNPN, we are currently a small board, so there might be some interest who might be interested in joining. So it would be interesting to talk to some others who can bring some insight.
Great, Ashley, thank you. I'm going to now just start calling names again. And how about Allison?
Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Bunstein. So I do not work for a nonprofit. I actually work in IT at GE Lighting at Nela Park. I do serve on the board of All Faiths Pantry. So it's a program that we work with providing food from the food bank, but we deliver it to seniors or those with mobility issues in Cleveland area and some surrounding suburbs. And I've been on the board for 3 years now, and I am currently the secretary, and I have chaired the marketing committee for a while. I ended up joining because I moved back to Cleveland and I wanted to get involved with the community, and I wanted to help with food insecurity in the area as well. And I'm open to potentially joining other boards that have to do with technology, which is another passion of mine as well. I have a degree in computer science, and I have learned more about the digital divide in Cleveland area and want to potentially work towards helping with that. So I'm open for.
So Allison, how did All Faiths Pantry find you?
So one of my coworkers, Brandy Basala, she knew me from when I was interning, and she knew I was coming back to the Cleveland area and thought I'd be a great fit to join the board. And I really enjoyed it, and I'll be re-upping on another term this month, actually.
So it's a wonderful organization, and I worked with John V. when he founded it from the beginning. And Lauren Pencala was a student of mine and is my good friend. And I'm so glad they found you. So you're open to boards, but you can't leave them.
Correct.
Okay, you have to promise me you can't leave them. Okay, so that's a great board, and that's the kind of board that is really smart to know to look for young professionals versus just looking for the same old people that everybody else is kind of looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And we are looking to grow our board as well for All Faiths Pantry. So you.
Tell me what you're looking for. Do you know off the top of your head what you're looking for?
Yep, I would say there's a few different areas I think we'd be able to fill. I think a social worker aspect again would be very vital, as well as working on the marketing committee too. I think somebody with like an events planning background, social media would be beneficial to have.
Okay, that's great. And I don't know if you know this yet, Ashley, but you work with All Faiths Pantry a lot at the food bank and always look to All Faiths Pantry as one of your star partners. And isn't John V often serves as a spokesperson, though? Is he officially involved now or not?
He is on the board, but he is not the executive director anymore.
Right. Okay. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. How about Miranda? Are you there? You are?
Hello. I've been keeping my video off because it's kind of distorted, but I'll have it on
Good.
while I speak. So I'm Miranda. I'm currently job searching in the nonprofit sector. I am passionate about social justice issues, so that's kind of my main area of focus. But I don't know, I'm pretty open in the nonprofit sector. I find new nonprofits every time I search. So I'm not really too restrictive on that end. I have background in development and marketing. So I serve on the YNPN Cleveland Board of Directors. I am the current communications chair. I served a term last year as the co-programming chair. And I haven't really been looking for boards at this point. I'm just trying to get settled in a new job in that next career move.
So what kind of job are you looking for?
Well, my background is in, like I said, I have experience in development, working in database for Razor's Edge. So that tends to be a skill set that I find is often sought. And then I've got experience recently in an AmeriCorps role on the end of marketing, which I really enjoyed. So I'd like to do more of that, but I don't really have, I don't have as much experience in that. So I'm still kind of learning.
And where have you worked? What nonprofit have you worked in or with?
So I was with the Conservancy for Cog Valley National Park until I was let go due to pandemic cuts. And then I took on an AmeriCorps role that was with United Way of Greater Lorain County. And I just finished that up in August.
Okay, so you were, okay, so if you're looking for a development role for the most part, a fund development with some marketing?
I'm interested in development. I'm interested in marketing. I'm interested in volunteer management, that end of things.
Okay. If you want to send me your resume, I will see what might be a good fit that I'm aware of. Great.
Okay. I'd appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Now, let me see. Is it Adriana?
Yes, hello.
Hello, there you are.
Yes. So I currently work for the Centers for Children and Families, and I'm a family advocate. So I work at 3 CMSD schools, well, in partnership with 3 CMSD schools, Harvey Rice, Jameson, and Miles Elementary. Basically, I provide like wraparound services to targeted classrooms. So yeah, that's what I do for work. I do not currently serve on a board. I was interested in getting more information. I was recently kind of introduced to the concept of boards because I always thought they were like for older white men. No offense, with
Because
like
that's
a lot of money.
No, that's what they mainly have been, right? That is what they
Yeah.
mainly have been.
Yeah, so someone
Mhm.
recently stated that like, oh yeah, maybe a board might be good. So this was perfect timing to get like better information about like roles and responsibilities, term, and just generally like what is a board. Because I heard like, so one like young professional said it was like intense and like they wouldn't recommend it. And then I hear some people saying it's like a great experience. So I guess it depends on placement and making sure it's a match. That's what it sounds like.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, but I would be open to serving on a board. And what I typically like is community development, and I would like to learn more about like health determinants. That's like a major thing in Cleveland, and hopefully the board would help with. I feel that I have some skills that I acquired in graduate school that I'm not using now, such as like program evaluation. Would like to know more in grant writing, research methods like statistics. And I did consultation too. So those types of skills. I received a graduate degree at the University of New Haven in clinical community psychology.
Okay, great, thank you. And Rachel, do you see the questions, Rachel, that we're answering?
Sorry, I'm getting myself onto video. I did not see the questions, but I have kind of been listening. So are you asking whether or not we are on boards right now and what our background is?
See, first we're asking you, yep, do you currently work in the nonprofit sector? And if so, which one and what role? And if not, what are you interested in? So we'll give you one question at a time.
Okay, so I do not currently work in the nonprofit sector. I do not have any roles in the nonprofit sector. My background is commercial banking. I spent 15 plus years in commercial banking and recently went out on my own as a consultant. My educational background is accounting. So I help businesses with finding financing, whether that's traditional financing through a bank or non-traditional financing. So I'm looking to be a part of any nonprofit board. Anything that has to do with children or women initiatives, I'm very much interested in. But I'm open to anything at this point that could use my background and my expertise.
Okay, so you told us where you're working now. Have you served on boards before?
My own personal board, but that is it. My focus has been on raising my little ones. So now I'm at a point where I have more free time to where I would love to join nonprofit boards.
Okay, so your own personal board is you for your organization, for your business.
Correct. Yes, yes.
Okay, excellent. And I am looking, did I miss anybody? I don't think so. Did I miss anyone? Okay. I have a PowerPoint and I'm going to go through the PowerPoint, but I also want you all to interrupt because it's not interrupting with questions as we go. And some of you have not, raise your hand if you have a nonprofit degree. Ashley does. Most of you don't. Is that a true statement? Okay, so most of you, and you don't need to have a nonprofit degree, but so then what I'm going to be sharing, you've probably seen a lot of this, but I don't want to assume, and you're going to talk to me as we go about this. Okay, hold on here. Oops. So we're going to talk about what does it really mean to be on a board. And you're going to, again, share with me what you already know and add to it. The reason I asked if the YNPN had a 501c3 or not, because I didn't think it did. It does not make it any more or less important, but a 501c3 nonprofit designation comes serving on a board of a 501c3, which your organization is not, comes with very specific legal expectations and related. And it doesn't sound like any of you are lawyers, right? If any of you are a lawyer, tell me. But I always say I'm a pretend nonprofit lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, but I am. If any of you know anything differently than what I'm saying, just please join in. But nonprofit 501c3 organizations have boards because they have to. They're governed by nonprofit board, they're governed by boards of directors, and that comes with certain legal and ethical responsibilities that cannot be delegated. And that's the most important thing. No matter how small the organization, no matter how big the organization, from a small all faiths pantry to things even smaller, to a giant, the centers or Greater Cleveland Food Bank. The legal and ethical responsibilities of board members are the same. How you carry those out are different, but the responsibilities legally, they're the same. If you are on the board of a 501c3 nonprofit, as I just want to differentiate, there's some things here that are different than if you're on a young professionals board, which is an advisory board, or the YNPN board, which is actually an advisory board. Some of this is similar. A lot of it will look similar, but the legal pieces are not there. So when you're on a board, it's up to the board, not the executive director. If there is an executive director, because sometimes, remember, with really small organizations that are all volunteer, there isn't. But board members hire and fire the executive director and set the mission and purpose for the organization. So first and foremost, it's the board that determines the mission and purpose of the organization and hires the chief executive, then supports that person and does performance reviews. And that person is the person then that provides all of the services as far as running the organization on a day-to-day basis on behalf of the board, in line with the mission that the board has set. It's up to a board to be sure that effective organizational planning is done, meaning keep up with what the neighborhood needs, make sure there are current strategic plans in place, make sure the programs and services that you're offering are the programs and services that a community needs. Make sure, like Adriana mentioned, that appropriate evaluations are being done to be sure that the programs and services you're offering are indeed meeting the needs of the community. So a board at a kind of a higher level has to keep their eyes on that. Many people say, well, it's up to the board to make sure there's enough money, to raise the money, to monitor how the money is used. That all those words that I just said is true, but it is a partnership with your staff. And we have two accountants on here. Do either of you accountants want to say anything to that? About ensuring adequate resources and managing those resources effectively? If you do, just go ahead. If not, we'll come back to that.
This is Kelly. Oh,
Sure.
go ahead.
No,
Another
Kelly.
accountability. Oh, okay, go. I'll just add my experience in this area, something I found that worked well as far as like adequate resources. I feel like one of the hardest parts of being on the board is I'm not there on site working every day. I don't know what's going on, right?
Right.
But one of the best things, like from a financial perspective that I've experienced on the boards I'm on, is we have a committee. So we have different committees like development, fundraising. We have a finance committee.
Mhm.
So, we're meeting once a month with our accountant. We're reviewing our financials in detail. We're talking about like the nitty gritty details. And then the whole board doesn't have to be there for that. And that's kind of the way you dig into those type of things instead of in a
Yes.
full board meeting where that's maybe not the most appropriate. You won't get you don't have time to get those answers.
Very good point. I'm going to come back to that point in a minute too. So Adriana, your hand was up.
Yeah, my question was, let's just say, like, I don't have a background in finance, so how would I review that? But I think her question answered that it seemed like it's a big board and then there's smaller committees.
All right, but that is good, but I'm not going to disagree at all with Kelly, but I'm going to add on to what Kelly said.
Okay.
You can definitely
Yeah.
disagree with me. That's okay.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you, but I don't think you're going to disagree with what I have to say at all. When some people, they say, oh, I'm on the board, but I'm not good with numbers. I'll just let the finance committee worry about that. You don't do that, right, Kelly? You trust the finance committee to dig in, and you trust, and then you make sure the finance committee is reporting to the full board. And then you're asking questions. And you're not just saying, oh, I don't need to hear that. The finance committee's on top of it. Because if there is an issue, you're all responsible. And I'm going to explain what I mean here. And you're all going to help me. Those of you that work for nonprofits, do serve on boards, have served on boards. And I'm not here at all to scare you away. But there is some here, what James just wrote. I think every board member should be able to talk about the first page of the 990. What else did you say there? And tell a high-level story about the organization's finances. Everyone on a board should be able to talk about how big the budget is, the key sources of funding, the key uses of funding, and that you have a strong finance committee that provides a thorough report every month to the organization. And James, during the years that you were at CPT, were you at all involved with the finance committee?
Not personally directly. I helped the deputy director or the general manager prep finance reports for the committee, but did not interact with them usually directly.
And Joanne is your treasurer, right?
She was at that time, yeah.
And I'm just doing something here, and Lauren works for Joanne, who I brought up, who's at All Faiths Pantry. So those are great organizations that things are done right. But
Joanne made huge contributions to CPT.
For years, yes.
Yeah.
So if you're on the board of a nonprofit, you don't have to be that's a really good question on how to best educate those on the board without a finance background to be able to truly understand. Okay. BVU offers programs. You all know BVU, Business Volunteers Unlimited. They offer a program every year, at least once a year, on the role of the board in finance. I will tell you I, for years, before COVID, would go to that. And the only negative I have to say about that program is, to me, it is targeted to board members of the food bank and board members of bigger organizations, and that's okay. And I would take groups and then kind of translate how what they heard relates to baby size organizations, small organizations, because there are more levels of complexity with bigger organizations. You want to be on a board that has a finance committee, and you want to be on a board that has people on the finance committee that have finance backgrounds. It's okay to have people on finance committees that don't have finance backgrounds. And, oh, any chance you get to take a course on how to read a 990? Yes. So BBU offers programs like that. And there are several others that do, but that is a really good program. Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, which serves the Community Development Corporation industry. I do a lot of capacity building training for them, and we do work there to help those board members learn. But I'm telling you, you want to be sure the board members the board has a finance committee that takes it seriously, that there are people on the finance committee that know finance. It's okay to have non-finance people on there that ask good questions. You want to be sure that there are written financial policies and procedures that provides the appropriate separation between, great, James, thank you for being here, to head to a financial management class. Okay, so that you want to be sure that there is the appropriate separation and segregation of responsibilities. So the same people are not writing checks, that are reconciling the checking account, that are seeing all of the invoices, that are preparing all the financial statements. And people will say with a small organization, it's hard to do that, to divide it up. Yes, it's hard, and yes, you can do it, and it's really important. For our two CPAs on here, do either of you have anything you want to add to that?
I wanted to add just a good real life example I have to that. I think, is it Adriana? Adriana, sorry. Adriana mentioned, like, you know, how do I even like know what to ask or say or do about finances? Like, I don't have a finance background. I get that all the time on boards I'm on, where people are kind of like, what am I going to ask the CPA who owns their own business and teaches accounting in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, one of the best, like most helpful board members I serve with, she has no background in finance or accounting. She's an IT person that works for the courts. She will stop in meetings and ask questions and say, but wait, what? Hold on. Like, just using her like human brain and say, like, does this mean like, you know, we only have $100,000 to spend on this, or how much is that contract? Or she'll just stop and ask like normal, like rational people questions. So I don't think that you have to have like a financial background to be able to have, you know, the financial conversations. Like, maybe you can't read a 990, it's a scary tax return, okay? But you can still like hear me present on budget and say like, whoa, why are we at that loss, or what happened, or what changed since last year? So I really think board members can add a lot of value, even just asking questions.
You want to be sure that you are getting regular financial reports. You want to be sure that the finance committee is delving into those regular financial reports. And I don't want to take up too much of our time, but you will then go Google Collinwood Nottingham Villages Development Corporation in Cleveland, where just a few years ago, the executive director stole $250,000 under the noses of the board members. And when the FBI was brought in, because it was determined that some of the money she took was federal money, because at first Cuyahoga County prosecutors were working on it, but when federal money came into it, it went to the FBI, and every single board member was interviewed. And every single board member every single person that had been on the board during her time was interviewed. They were very nervous. They were very nervous, and they had done everything right, meaning they had asked the question. She had not given them the true stories and so on, but people tried. And when month after month, when there wasn't a financial report and the board members kept asking, and she said, gosh, we're so busy with XYZ, we'll have it next month, those kinds of things. So you'll read that. None of the board members got in trouble. They all were FBI interviewed. So it's a serious responsibility. So you don't want to join a board that doesn't have a finance committee with a person or two that knows what they're doing. And you don't want to join a board where all people are not, thank you, Kelly, for putting that out there. All people are not encouraged to ask any questions they have. And unless it's a tiny organization, you want to be sure that they do an annual audit, unless either of our accountants here disagree. If it's a smaller organization, you want to be sure they do a financial review, and you want to be sure that the auditor that is being used either comes and presents to the full board, or at least presents to the finance or audit committee, so that you know the finances are in order. How is that? Accounting people, anything? You're all good? And this is not meaning to scare you away, because most people do things right. Okay, then I'm bringing back my PowerPoint. Okay, so again, to this ensure adequate resources and manage resources effectively, board members approve budgets. You don't approve a budget if it doesn't make sense to you. You ask questions, you make sure you're not approving a budget that will cost more money to raise than the organization ever raised before, unless there's a good solid plan in place for how that's going to be raised. And those are the kinds of questions you want to know and you want to ask. You are there to enhance the organization's public standing, which I always say means to serve as an ambassador for the organization, talk about the organizations and its programs and services. Go ahead.
I'm having a hard time.
Say that again.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. I think you kind of break it up. I didn't know if it was just my computer or.
Am I breaking up?
Yeah.
Okay. If I better or no? No? My video, does that help? Audrey, still here?
No, it's not helping.
Am I better? It's not helping.
Let's try it some more time, because it seems like in some places you are okay and I can hear you clearly, and then other times you're a little bit choppy.
Okay, I will try. Tell me how I'm doing though.
It sounds good now.
So you serve as an ambassador, ambassador of the organization, both sharing what the organization does with the community and be bringing in community needs. What does the community need to the organization? Ensure legal and ethical integrity and recruit and orient new board members and evaluate the board performance. That's what board members do. Board members do not, unless it's important to, board members do not run programs and services. Board members work with, provide oversight, and work with staff members, do that work on day out. So why does all of that matter? So under well-established principles of nonprofit law, board must certain conduct and carrying out responsibilities. So that's why I'm saying this is not scary business, it is serious business. One of you, you know that someone told you that it's intense to be on a board. And sometimes it's intense, but it should just be serious. And you hear me all right? Okay, or someone medium? Okay.
Bonnie.
So medium. Darn. Okay. So duty of and duty of legal, and I'm going to tell you what those mean. Duty of care is really you pay attention. You make sure you're getting the materials you need and you pay attention. Duty of loyalty is everything first and foremost on board is that board comes first. So when young professionals serve on a special young nonprofit leaders, that's where it can be a little bit tricky if you work for a nonprofit and you go to serve on the board of another nonprofit. It can absolutely be done. I encourage it. You just need to remember when you're this means that a board member can never use information obtained as a member of the board for personal gain or your personal or professional gain, but must act in the best interests of the organization. And we'll talk more about that. And board members must be faithful to the organization first and foremost. A basis for this rule lies in the public's trust that the organization will manage donated funds to fulfill the mission. And board members need to make sure that that indeed is what is happening. I always put this fiduciary duty slide in my presentations because people always say, well, I know board members have fiduciary duty. But I think most people don't realize what that really, really means. And again, it's all that we've been talking about. Most people think they have financial responsibility, which they do. But fiduciary duty, I think this is a very good, helpful definition. Board members need to stay objective, responsible, honest, trustworthy. Board members, as stewards of public trust, must always be for the good of the organization, and board members must exercise reasonable care in all decisions. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing for a couple minutes here and see, are you able to hear me now? You can, and can you hear my dog? One of my barking too.
Yep, I can hear them.
So what I was, okay, am I okay? And I'll turn off my screen again, my video if I need to.
Right.
What I was going to show you is a statement of expectations, a written statement of expectations. You all, if you serve boards, there is a written statement of expectations. All right, where there is a written statement of expectations. What I showed you was a very, very high level, what it means to serve on a board. What are the legal implications of serving on a board? And that's good, but I don't any of you serving on a board unless there is something that says for this specific board at this specific point in time, here's what's expected. The board meets 6 times a year. You're expected to come to at least 3/4 of those meetings, and we meet on Thursday mornings at 7:30 a.m. You are required to serve on at least one committee, and we expect you to attend 3/4 of the committee meetings, and those committees meet at varying times depending on the schedules of the individuals. And yes, I'll give you my PowerPoint gladly. And it will say what the financial responsibility is, the personal financial responsibility. Do I get to, I'm going to try again and tell me if I need to turn this off again. You want to know when you get on a board how much money you personally will be required to donate to the organization. You probably know that most all boards, not every board, but almost every board asks that 100% of board members make a financial contribution every year. And what you will often hear, and are you hearing me all right? Okay, Kelly is, thank you, Kelly. So what you want to know is it one of those boards that says, oh good, lots of good thumbs up, thank you, that says everyone on the board will make a financial contribution, and we ask that you contribute a minimum of $500 per year or a minimum of $5,000. Or often they say everyone will make a personal contribution that is personally significant. No specific amount is required, and individual amounts will remain confidential, but everyone is asked to make a contribution. And some people that do board recruiting, I think why they miss out on even thinking about young professionals is they think that their financial figures will make it impossible for young professionals to participate. But I was talking to one of my friends the other day with a pretty big, a well-known organization with a pretty big board. And they recently dropped their specific giving level from, I think it was 5,000, but it was multiple thousands that not only most young people couldn't do, most people couldn't do, to any amount that is comfortable for you. And I said, does that mean like a few $100s or what? She said, if it's $20 and that's a lot for them, it's $20 and it's fine. And so, because they are trying to diversify the makeup of their board in all ways, including younger people. So you want to join a board with a statement of expectations that I'm going to try to share this quickly again, and we'll see if it works for you. That includes things like, if you can see this, commit to the mission and vision. I talked to you about board meetings and committee meetings, prepare in advance for meetings, reading, preparing, considering materials. Here's the fundraising support that I talked to you about, assist the board and its staff in fundraising efforts. By, in this case, this is a sample that says arranging introductions, signing letters, and so on. And number 7, participate actively in promoting and coordinating special events hosted by the organization. Here's the personal contribution that I mentioned: serve as an ambassador, disclose any conflict of interest, keep everything confidential. This list of resources will have articles on all those things that you were asking about, including financial responsibilities of board members, how to learn more about financial responsibilities of board members, and so on. So I'm sending you, again, I'm giving this to all of you, but that's where all of that is. But first ask me, do you have any basic questions about what service on a nonprofit board means? Any questions at all, what you'd be getting into? Nothing.
Janice, I have
Yes.
one. This is
Sure.
Kelly. Kind of just for the group. My experience, and maybe it's just my experience, is that the young professional boards I join, or the ones that are called young professionals, tend to not have a financial donation requirement. And then the big board, for lack of a better word, they tend to be more likely to have a financial requirement. Do you find that as well, or is that just my experience?
No, that's fairly true. So what I just talked to you about is serving on the governing board, the big board, the real board, the legal board, the real board of an organization. And the ones that are not real boards are very important as well. All of the legal and financial and hiring and firing of the executive director and determining the mission and vision for the organization. The big decisions are made by the board of directors. Many organizations, not many, but quite a few, started in the last decade plus of doing junior boards and young professional boards, or friends boards, or advisory boards, or honorary boards. They all have different names. They are not the governing board. They do not make financial decisions. They do not have legal responsibilities. I always think if people are joining a junior board, a friends board, an advisory board, any of those, that here, what Ashley is saying for the zoo, we do pay for it, but it includes membership and other benefits. Let's see what she has here at the food bank. Then at the food bank, it's not required, but it's strongly encouraged to make a financial contribution. I believe when you're even on junior boards, there should be a statement of expectations. You should know what you're getting into. And you should know why the organization is doing this. All right, Rachel was on the Friends Board of Beachbrook. Rachel, will you tell us about your experience? I've had several students over the years on the Beachbrook board. How was your experience with that?
It was good. So I was basically there to help with awareness and fundraising. So I was there to participate in their main fundraisers, plus helping with like 5Ks. And so there was obviously no financial, we didn't see the financials of the board, and we didn't have those board meetings officially, but it was more or less meeting there at least quarterly. And having just discussions about what we can do to raise awareness and funds. So there was no financial aspect required, but I did give generously to that organization.
And were you gently encouraged to do so?
Yes, I would say that it was kind of expected, but it wasn't required.
And it was expected, and if somebody gave $25, it would have been okay, right?
Yes, exactly.
Right,
Yes.
okay. So organizations started doing these young professional boards, junior boards, again, whatever the name is, for a variety of reasons, including but not limited to developing a pipeline of people to serve on the board. The real board, the big board, the governing board, any of those things.
And that's what Beachbrook was doing. So they were using that also as a funnel into their real board.
And did you see people move from the young professionals to the real board?
Not at the time that I was quote unquote serving, but since I've stepped away from that role, I have seen some of the people continue on to the main board. So yes.
Okay, so they do some of that. Also, in addition to the junior boards doing that, some people would rather be involved only to help with special events, to work on special events, to bring their friends to special events. There's plenty of people that enjoy that and know that they're really helping by doing that. And they don't want to get into search committees for hiring directors and making sure that the audit is properly done and taking on all those responsibilities as well. So there's so having a junior board is a way for an organization to get lots of extra help, have people who really care about the organization, learn about the organization and spread the word, and have a pipeline for people that can get involved in other ways. So they're very, very, very good. When organizations ask me about what do you think about having a junior board, I say, if you're going to have such a thing, you've got to make the time on the staff and or on the board to work with them. And you need to have regular meetings, and you need to have clear responsibilities, and you need to provide the information to these people. Because I have encountered too many organizations where they think these junior boards are just going to kind of run by themselves and bring in all this help and money for you. And then it's a real negative. And I always tell people my Heinen's story from a number of years ago, which was I took on a new client and I was studying their website and I saw they had a board, they had the real board, but they also had an advisory board. And the very day I was reading that, I went to the Heinen's near my house and I ran into someone that I knew and I said, hey, just saw your name on the advisory board for such and such. That's great. I'm going to be doing some work with all of you. And the person said, are you kidding? My name is on there? I haven't heard from them for a few years. I did volunteer way back. So I always tell that story because it's better to, so then that person was thrown and it made me think, does this organization know what they're doing? And on and on and on. So if you're going to, if you are from a staff perspective, if you're going to add a junior board to your mix of things, and it doesn't have to be a junior board, it could be a parents advisory committee, it could be an alumni advisory committee. If you're going to add important bodies of people there to do work for your organization, in addition to the governing board, you've got to have the time, the care and feeding of to make sure those people deserve respect, that they get the information they need, they have a job to do, and they're given what they need to do that job. So I was talking about all those expectations and all those things I was writing. Those are about real full-fledged boards. And I don't mean to put down boards that are not, but I want you to understand that there are two types. Does anyone have any questions? Are you all good? You're all good on that. Okay. Now I'm going to move into the second part of my presentation without going back to my PowerPoint for a moment, which is what do young professionals bring to boards and why people doing recruiting for boards, to me, often don't think of young professionals. So you have to tell me as young professionals, what do you feel that young professionals bring to boards? What do you all say? Rachel says fresh perspective. Very good. Kelly, what do you say?
I've got a list, but first thing is a lot of energy. I mean, regular board, legal board of directors versus junior board, the energy is very different typically.
What
Also,
else? Energy. Mhm.
The other most important, I think, is just a whole list of contacts. Like, you know, there's 30 people on one of the junior boards I serve on, and they all work at different companies in Cleveland. So that's 30 sources you have to spread awareness, to get
Contacts.
funds,
Mhm.
and, like little plants in each organization.
Here, and Ashley Z's younger generation perspectives, which is good. Who else has things for this list? I'm going to add these into the PowerPoint. When I send it to you, you're going to see your words there. So I'm coming back to this. I'm coming back for a moment here. So I'm asking you, how would you all answer the question? And you told me your answers. And some misconceptions that people recruiting for boards may have about recruiting young professionals. What do you say to that? What misconceptions do they have? Why do they not recruit young professionals to boards? Any thoughts on that one?
Maybe that they're not committed enough.
And here Miranda has unreliable.
Yeah, I was gonna say experience, so.
Lack of dedication or experience. Okay. So I think all of that's true. And then sometimes the financial piece. Do you all know how boards go about recruiting people, or how they do or how they should? How the recruitment process works? Okay.
Like who you know. It usually doesn't seem like they just put, like, you know how job posted on Indeed. I really don't see that. Usually it's through like they invite you, it seems like. I'm not sure.
That is right.
It does seem like.
It is, what you're saying is totally true.
Okay.
You are invited. Okay. I'm going to put a slide up and talk through it. But as I'm doing this, does anyone have any questions for me at this point? Please keep asking questions. Okay.
Yeah, and can I piggyback? It seems like that the invitation goes based on your skills as well as if you're a good fit for the organization.
Yes.
Because I think sometimes you can have great skills, but like you may not fit the culture of the board.
You're totally right. You're totally right.
Too.
So every board has or should have, and I'm talking about best practices and everything I do, everything I'm saying to all of you. Every board has or should have a board committee, whether it's called the governance committee or the board development or committee on trustees or nominating committee, that among other items is in charge of recruiting new board members. And the way I recommend this is done is that the first thing that should be done every year is looking at what is the perfect board for your organization at this point in time of the life of the organization. What do you need in terms of skill sets and expertise? What do you need in terms of demographics? What do you need in terms of people that really understand the content? What do you need in terms of, is your finance committee strong? Are you going through a capital campaign and you're going to be for raising more money than you've ever had before? Do you have a strong investment committee? Are you looking to be moving to a new facility in the next few years? So you better have some real estate expertise that you might not normally need to have, but we do now. So whatever it might be, and there's no one right answer, and it's different for every organization. And it's different for every organization at any point in time of the history of the organization. Then a good board governance committee should be determining, okay, we have 4 spots open on the board. We realize that everyone on our board is 60 or over, and we serve young families, and we don't have people that are up on that, so we need some younger people. We realize we serve primarily people of color, and our board is heavily white. We serve all of Cuyahoga County, and most of our board lives on the east side, or whatever it might be. Then this piece that I have here that says strategic outreach to all types of stakeholders and connecting with young professionals. That's where the problem usually begins. Because what happens very often is board members say, oh, my next door neighbor's brother just moved here from Texas, and he's looking to get involved. We'll ask him. Or there's this person at my church that mentioned to me that they want to get involved in the community. Let's ask. Or my daughter's best friend's mom might be good. And there's nothing wrong with that other than you then end up with a bunch of people that kind of all know the same people. So as some of you mentioned that young professional boards, yep, groupthink, yes. Young professional boards often have 30 people that work for 30 different companies and do 30 different things. I see greater diversity of thought in young professional boards than in boards because of how people do their recruiting. What I always recommend is that a nonprofits committee, whether it's again governance or board development or whatever it's called, once they know what those profiles are of who they're looking for, they develop community connectors. They think about who do they know that know 1 million people in the community. And then you go to those people and you say, and people come to me all the time and they say, don't worry, Janus, we're not asking you to serve on boards. We know you don't do that, but we know you know 1 million people. We know you know your students from the past 20 years. Here's what we're looking for. Do you know anyone that fits? And that is what I recommend people do so that they are not finding the usual suspects. For a while there, the go-to people were the community affairs directors at corporations in town, for example. Everybody wanted the community affairs people from KeyBank or from PNC or from Lubrizol, or the community affairs people from the same key corporations or the same key community leaders from the same old major nonprofits or whatever it might be. And it's the digging deeper that often doesn't happen. So what I thought we should talk about is, there's 2 more things I want to talk to you about in this remaining time, and I want to answer any questions you have. I asked Ashley H. earlier if YNPN has any mechanism for matching members with board seats. And what did you say, Ashley, that if you hear from organizations, you share it?
Yes, if we hear that there's a board position available, we typically send it in our newsletter to our members.
And do many boards reach out to you?
Unfortunately, no. It's more the jobs that we actually find from Indeed or something. But if they reach out to us by email, but typically not.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I've been trying to think of what to tell all of you about how to find seats on boards. In addition to telling me and keeping in touch with me, which is a perfectly fine, perfectly good thing to do. If you work at a corporation and you're high enough up in your corporation, and your corporation is a member of BVU that we mentioned earlier, BVU has a board matching program. But that's a board matching program, and it's a very good program, but that's a board matching program for business members. They're called Business Volunteers Unlimited, for business members to place their middle and upper middle management on community boards. So if you fall in that category, but none of you did when you introduced yourself. If you know people that work for Key and Swagelock and some of those, and they're up and comers and they're high enough up, they could then say to their HR people, are we a member of BVU, and could I go through the next class of people that go through the Volunteer Trustee Institute? But the only negative thing about that program is that many people that do nonprofit board recruiting, they think it is the end all and be all. And they forget that there's people that do a million different things, that are small business owners, that are teachers, or that are nurses, or that do things other than work for a corporation, that can make extremely wonderful board members. So the advice I have is on how to be considered for a board is, number one, tell me and keep in touch. Number two, if it's a big organization that has a junior board or whatever the term is, join that board, but also make it clear to the executive director and or the leader of the board, a leader of the board, a board member, that you'd like to be considered for the board. Yes, add me on LinkedIn. Yes, please. Feel free to. That good question. And that is an important way to do this. Join one of those boards. Talk to, when you're on one of those boards, the executive director and or key board members. If you know executive directors of other nonprofits, make it known that you would be interested in serving on the board and what you bring. Because if you're not proactive like that, very few people are not smart. They don't think about younger people. I think younger people on boards is a really good, smart thing to do. And you're going to need to be a bit proactive, is my thinking. If YNPN at some point formalized a board matching program, people would probably be all over it, but it is a lot of work, because you don't want to be sending people to just any old board. For that reason, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint, because I put something together for you here. If I were asked to join a board, here's what I would ask. So this is what I would want you to ask. And again, I'm giving you this. This is what we talked about earlier. And it's not the first thing you ask someone, but normally when a board, I'm going back to that whole recruitment process I laid out, that a governance committee or a board development committee or whatever the terminology is that would be used, they would determine what the profiles are, what they're looking for. And then they would reach out to community connectors and get a bunch of names and prioritize those names based on who sounds like they are the best fit for the organization at this time, and then set up meetings. So if you were sought out by a board member of an organization that said, we're interested in you, we're interested in you joining our board and would like to talk to you more about it, the first thing you want to ask them is, but after thank you for thinking of me, it's an honor to be thought of, and listen to what they want and why they thought of you. You would sit down with them, and a lot of this would be discussed. These are very picky, but do you do an audit? Does the auditor come? You could easily say, you know, I know that the financial role is very important of a board member, and I would be learning more about that. Help me understand. I'm assuming, of course, there's a finance committee. And then if you hear, well, we haven't been able to get anyone to sit on that committee for a while, kind of thing, you take that seriously. But hopefully you would hear, yes, there is. And the finance committee has 3 members. Why? Is that something you'd be interested in? And your answer would be yes or no. But help me understand a little bit. You do have an audit every year, and do we hear from the auditor? And does the finance committee get involved with financial policies and procedures, or does say a little bit more? As a board member, would I be seeing financial reports and so on? So you look at that, and you see where this goes. So what I have on this slide is you don't need to ask every single one of those questions, but you need to ask enough to get a feel that the finances are under control. You're not stepping into anything you wouldn't want to be associated with, especially as young professionals just getting started in your careers, often nonprofit careers. You don't want to be on the board of an organization that has an article written like the one I directed you to a little while ago. You want to be sure there's a conflict of interest policy in place. You want to be sure, I have on here that the board meets a minimum of 6 times a year. It could be 4, but you don't want to be on one of those boards that meets, say, just twice a year, so the board has very little involvement with what's going on. You want to be on a board where the board gets involved. Term limits, and I'm going to talk to you about the term limits in one piece. In 1 second, you want to, in the next piece here, you want to be sure that the board isn't, you know, a bunch of white women that live in Bay Village that are all between 40 and 45 and this, whatever it is, that you are, nothing is wrong with white women that live in Bay Village that are 45, but you want to be sure, unless it's a Bay Village Women's Association, you want to be sure that it is a board that has the expertise that you would feel comfortable with. You want to hear about how they get input from the committee. How do they get input from the community? How do they get input from the people that they serve? These are just would be things to listen to. Do you have personnel policies? Do you have a strong board development committee? You would know that based on how they were approaching you. So these are not things that you just sit there and ask them 50 questions here, but ask enough to get a feel for, is this a good solid board according to nonprofit best practices? Is it the kind of board I would like to be involved with? This provide a clear description of your role within the organization. That's what I showed you earlier as a sample statement of expectations. You want to know what you're getting into. Where did I said I wanted to go back to have term limits? Let me make sure I had nothing else I wanted to. Okay, I'm going to take this away and I'm going to talk about term limits and directors and officers liability insurance. Okay, most boards, no, all boards of nonprofits, one of the key governing documents of a nonprofit board is its code of regulations, which most people call bylaws, but the real name in the state of Ohio is Code of Regulations. But we all call them bylaws, and we all act like they're called bylaws. But again, officially, bylaws and Code of Regulations are the same thing, and the proper name is Code of Regulations. In the Code of Regulations, it usually talks about the minimum number of people on a board and the maximum number of people on the board. If it doesn't include that in there, in the state of Ohio, the minimum number is 3. By law, the maximum number is there is no maximum. But usually it will say the board of XYZ organization shall have at least 7 members and no more than 20 members or something like that. It will also talk about term lengths and term limits, meaning it will often say board members are elected by the board or by the membership or whatever it might be to 3-year terms, and a person may serve up to 3 consecutive 3-year terms, after which time they must take at least 1 year off from the board, but then may return to the board. That's an example, because sometimes they're 1-year terms and sometimes they're 2-year terms and sometimes they're more than 3 consecutive terms. Sometimes it will say individuals are elected to 2-year terms, period. That means there are no term limits, and a person may be elected to 2-year terms for the rest of their life. There are no term limits. Sometimes it doesn't say anything about term lengths or term limits. It just says that people are elected to the board by the majority of vote of the full board, whatever it might be. Some boards have no term lengths and no term limits. Once in a while, that's a fine thing. Usually it's not. Often, not always, you find people who have been on the board for 20 years, 30 years plus, who do things the way they've always been done. Not always. There's some people that will shake things up even if they've been doing it for 40 years. And there are some people, even if there's no term lengths or limits, who will say, I've been on this board for 10 years. I think it's time for me to go because I think it's important for there to be fresh blood, and fresh ideas and new thinking. But normally, if you're asked to serve on a board with no term lengths and no term limits, you think long and hard about that. Often, when there are term lengths but no limits, and those are all perfectly fine too, the board development committee or the governance committee or whatever it is, they need to be tough enough to be able to say, Kelly, thank you for serving 5 consecutive years, 5 consecutive terms. We really appreciate it, and we wish you well. If Kelly hadn't been showing up for meetings, or if Kelly bought a house in Florida and one in Hawaii and wasn't around as much, or this and that. So you have to, when there are no term limits, you need to be sure that it's not a board where you have a bunch of people, not mediocre people, but people doing a mediocre job. That's what the note you want to find out about term lengths and term limits means. Who can tell me what D&O insurance or director and officer liability insurance is?
Insures the agency if the directors or officers make mistakes.
And insures the directors and officers if the agency does something wrong. But, so you don't want to join a board where there is no D&O insurance. But when the Collinwood organization I told you about earlier, they all knew they had D&O insurance, but what made it so that the D&O insurance would actually would actually cover what happened and protect them as individuals. It was important to show that the minutes said that the board asked for financial reports again and were promised that they would have them at the next meeting, that they were doing those kinds of things and taking their responsibility seriously. So ask me questions about anything you heard me talk about. So I told you what it really means to be on a board. I told you what it means, why I think nonprofit people, young nonprofit people aren't asked to be on boards often, and some little tips on how to be asked. And I told you questions to ask to be sure you are not asking, you're not getting yourself in trouble by joining the wrong board. Ask me questions.
Janice, what do you think about when we were talking about how do you join a board? How do you find a board? Because I hear that all the time from people. It's a little putting yourself out there, but what do you think about doing something like a LinkedIn status saying like, you know, hey colleagues, like I have a lot to give. I'm looking to join a board. Let me know. I never had to do exactly that, but I know a lot of opportunities came my way because people knew I was willing to serve on board.
I've heard of people doing that on LinkedIn and that it works.
Okay.
I've heard of that. Again, I would not be truthful if I said it wasn't, it's hard for young professionals to be considered, but I think it's silly when young professionals aren't considered. I think putting yourself out there like that is a really good way. I think talking to executive directors is really a good way. I think talking to people you know that sit on boards is a really good way. Other questions? What else can I tell you? Very few, I believe that very few organizations come to YNPN saying we're looking for board members because so many organizations feel within their own networks they'll find someone who knows somebody. I think it's really smart ones that go out of their way and do reach out to you. And it's smart ones that do what I'm recommending with reaching out to connectors. Because again, most organizations, I mean, some organizations have their own internal pipelines, like we talked about the junior boards. Other organizations have internal pipelines, and you ask someone, a young person, why they got on the board, and they'll say, my dad was on this board for 15 years and he recommended that they consider me instead. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if the dad was on the board for 15 years and the dad loves the organization, by putting the son on the board or the daughter on the board, they might be not getting different networks of people. Though I don't mean any of these as negative things at all. That is why you are going to have to put yourself out there a bit for young professionals to be asked to serve on boards. And I want to say too, it is what Adriana said earlier, it is like you are being invited, you are being considered, you are being interviewed both ways to make sure it's a good fit, because there is a culture and what's right for one person isn't right for other people. So it is a bit of a tricky process. I hope this was somewhat helpful to you. Any other questions? Rachel, what kind of dog do you have that's barking at my dogs?
He's a Weimaraner.
Do I get to see him?
Oh boy, he's 100 pounds. No, probably not.
I have a standard poodle and a Belgian Malinois who are barking here.
Oh, we also have a little Cavalier, but he's not as vocal as our big dog.
I understand. I understand. Anyone have any questions? Any questions at all? So on my, oh, wait a minute, who's there?
That's Pisces and Hobbs.
Oh, they're so cute.
Yeah, they heard the dogs, so they're looking. Hobbs,
So
come
if
here.
we
We
can
want to
see
meet
their
you.
beautiful faces.
Yeah.
Hello,
Yeah.
hello. Yeah, hello there. Hello, you two. Wait a minute. What's the bandana? Oh, it's a caution. Okay.
Caution. She's a rescue, so she's our princess, but she doesn't love when people come up and touch her.
She's cute.
Yeah, this Pisces.
One of my sons is a dog trainer and he would approve of that. He doesn't like people to go up and touch dogs. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Especially because she's so stinking cute. So I'll tell them no, but they won't listen.
they won't listen. That's what Jake says
No.
too. So on my Janus Small Associates Facebook page, I post nonprofit job openings. If you're looking for nonprofit job openings, feel free to look there. If you're working somewhere that wants to get the word out about nonprofit job openings, just send them to me and I will be glad to share. And if you want to keep in touch with me and follow up about types of boards, even tighter than what we said earlier that you're looking to consider being considered for, just keep in touch with me. And I mean it, and I'll get the PowerPoint to Ashley H. And I thank you all so much, and I'm going to turn things over to Ashley then to wrap us up, unless people have questions.
Janice, what's the best email to get a hold of you at if we're going to send you information or have questions?
Okay, I'm putting it all in here.
Yeah, I'm trying to look you up on Facebook. How did you say?
Janus Small Associates.
Oh.
And I'm Janus. Janus Small. So on Facebook, it's Janus Small Associates. And then I'm JSMALL.
We can also put this on an email app for you guys as well, just to give you information on her LinkedIn account, her Facebook page. So you'll receive a thank you email for attending the online event, as well as the PowerPoint and a survey at the end, just to give us some insight on what we can do in the future, what other topics you want to talk about. If there's any other questions you may not have had or had a chance to ask, I can certainly pass that on to Janice, and she will be more than happy to help you out, I'm sure. But thank you so much, Janice, for being here today.
And Miranda, thank you for sharing that. I noticed that and wondered if that everything's been down today. Yes, Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, WhatsApp have all been down. Good.
Yeah. So
great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Again, my name is Ashley Hendricks. I'm with the YNPN Programming Chair. Janice, we would love to have you again for the future. If you have any, we would love to invite you for more board topics or leadership fundraising opportunities if you want to talk. If everybody else, please feel free to reach out to us if you would like to find out on our email newsletters about upcoming events, as well as joining our membership. Again, we are looking for interested board members. If you have a particular interest, talk to us, reach out to us. We would love to chat with you. And so that way we can get you on board, and have fun. So thank you so much for everybody being here today. And Janice, again, have a great night. And again, thank you for being here.
Nice meeting you all. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Say goodbye. Good boy. Oh, yeah. Bye. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Have a great day, everybody. Great night.